Okay, I've been listening very carefully. Now, if health issues aren't a good reason to remove these antennas, why are we hiring an engineer to test for the emissions? My own feeling is what you just said. I'm very, very interested in what you said. I think accidents, I think fire, I think roof problems would be a more direct route. Because if the powers that be won't listen to the health issues, they will listen to accident issues. The antennas are up there. They can have all kinds of damage from lightning. The antennas could fall. There could be other damage. Maybe that's the route to go.
Well, one of the things that Jim had passed in City Hall and the fire code is, believe it or not, the roofs are not supposed to be occupied by more than 5%.
There's your answer.
That's not 5%. Now, you also have other issues with the airport, and they have a right. They exempt. They come over when you're in the flight path. Mm-hmm. They have certain rights that they can use, but you have to be informed as to what goes on.
Well, you're talking to a lady who lived in the 5 towns.
Oh, so you...
We had our issues. We absolutely had our issues. And they did change the flood plans. They did change them. That was what we accomplished over there in the 5 towns. They came directly over the high school, and we got that done.
See, but that's a perfect example of not getting up there.
Yeah, but it took a lot of power, people power. And I really, again, I'm emphasizing that the fire and the danger of the roof antennas falling and the damage to the roof is the way to go. I don't know why we're hiring people to test the emissions if the health issue is not going to get those antennas off the roof.
Well, here's what I think when I hear your question. I think that the co-op as a body should reach some consensus among itself as to whether or not it's going to figure out a way to live with the lease and do appropriate restrictions. For example, hold the entity, the leasee, right? To hold the leasee to the standard that was originally set 20 years ago and not permit any kind of new technology up there, to try to figure out a way to live, to peacefully coexist for the next 79 years with the lease that was signed, or whether or not you've reached a juncture where you want to put every bit of your life energy into sort of getting out from under the lease and making everything go away. Those are two different paths to take. And if you if you talk to different people, within the co-op, you'd probably have a camp of people who want to use whatever might be at the disposal of the co-op to get rid of the antennas, whether it's the new fire code, whether it's new information, whether it's some new interesting legal angle, whatever. So there'll be that camp, and then there'll be the peaceful, coexistence camp, and then there'll be another camp that says, look, if we could permit new technology up there where we'll make more money, but we'll be safe, and we'll have our guy check to make sure that we're going to be okay, and we'll put more money in our pocket, that camp's going to be out there too. So there's a couple of different, ways to go, and so what I think it's not for me as someone who doesn't live, in this co-op. I think it's up to the co-op to figure out which way it wants to go. It wants to kill the lease, wants to live with the lease in some, peaceful way, and wants to use the opportunity of new technology, which would sort of build onto the lease and make even more money from it. You got to figure out, which way you want to go. And so, and I think, the co-op as a body has to figure that out for itself. Kill, live in peace, or expand. I mean, these are all different ways to go.
Since I'm sitting here and the turnout that I see here, I think the answer is very clear. They want to do something about it.
So, people want to kill the lease. Is that okay?
I'm willing to put my money on that, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to say so.
And so, and again, I'm coming here to learn.
May I have one more thing to add, please, personally? I lived in the 5 towns, as I said, for 37 years. There was an apartment building that had Verizon antennas on the building. And what Verizon did, they went to each tenant in the building and gave them a stipend to keep the antennas on the building. And until the people were made aware that maybe there's something wrong in that, nothing was done. But within 6 months, the antennas were removed.
Well, just on
And
the
we,
original...
and we didn't have the turnout we have here. We had a very small turnout. We had maybe 75 people that came down to the meeting. And we had the meeting in the
It's all about
library.
business. They
I'm
need
just
your
trying to
business.
tell you this.
They need your business, so that's why they're
Okay.
happy to pay you, or they want
But at
your
any
business.
rate, the antennas were taken out.
But real quick back on
With a
your,
small
whether
turnout.
you need the engineer or not. I think the wholeheartedly you need professional engineer, but he or she shouldn't be limited. In fact, it probably should be expanded. There's a whole different things what they should do. Health and accountability, what's up there,
But if
and
health-
safety.
but
But you see,
again-
you don't want to not go that route, because
But if health
anything that
isn't
was
going to,
successful...
but if health isn't going to do it,
Well, it's not, I didn't say I wasn't going to do it, because that's usually where the public...
Radiation is health.
Yeah.
If
And,
there is radiation, that is the biggest health issue that you can imagine.
we've already been
And that's the
told-
foremost issue.
but we've
that
already been told that health isn't going to be the issue to remove the antennas.
Except if they are in excess of what is allowed by present law, you certainly don't want to allow it. And I want to remind you of something else. It's easy to say, let's remove this, let's remove this. There are substantial dollars that are presently coming in. Would you vote for an increase in maintenance based on that? Or do we want to make an ice skating ring up there? There are other uses we can have. But in the final analysis, it's a safety and the health that may possibly affect us is the most important thing. And if the hiring of the engineer is in excess of what you think is a better way, I don't mind spending extra for that engineer.
And once again, it really, comes down to, to what the co-op, as a group of shareholders, as a family, so to speak, want to do. And, these are big choices. If people set their heart and soul on the fact that they want to, get out from under the lease, and this is where, the co-op, collectively wants to go, then your elected officials want to support you in your choice. But it's your choice, and you are empowered to hire the experts that you want, to get the information, to see if you're comfortable with it, to weigh all the options, and we're here to support you in your choice, not to tell you what you ought to want.
Hi. First of all, I really have to thank all of you. This was an incredibly informative evening. But I have a couple of questions for her. Just for clarification, we have a specific number of antennas stated in the lease. Is that correct?
No.
There is no maximum
No.
number. So in other words, based on the way the lease is written today, they can put as many antennas on the roof as they choose?
Based on our contract, they can put as many as they want, but the permit that they received from the city in 1988, even that one doesn't have a number of antennas, but the extension of the permit in 1998 has a number, and that number is being exceeded, and the new request that is now being put in is an additional number even beyond what is presently on the permit.
Then my question to you would be, wouldn't that then be a tremendously effective hook for us to use to have more leverage? Because
We will.
one of the things that we're fighting here are the dollars. We're not getting enough for the roof.
Sure.
We don't think we are.
No, certainly, what it seems is that you have the lessee who is in violation of his city permit right now.
That's what I was.
So that's what. So I mean, that's not a good mark for him. And now he's going to the city, BSA, in order to find out whether or not he can even, legally get the city to permit that, number of antenna on the roof. But as Peter said, and as Paul said, as I've said also, they may bump into the fire code, right? Because we've got a brand new fire code, and there are other laws that may inhibit the ability of this lessee to put more antenna on the roof. And at the end of the day, you might not want it, and you might use the opportunity of saying this guy was in violation of his permit, and so you may want to go as a co-op, like before the BSA, and say this operator was acting in bad faith, outside the law, outside the bounds of his permit, and why do you want to reward this kind of behavior by just making it legal retroactively? And so again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but there are many options open to you, and you should figure out what you want, figure out what you're comfortable with, and use every ounce of your life energy to go and get it. And we're here to back you up.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just real quick, I think you should keep in mind, you've got a short-term battle and a long-term battle. And your short-term battle doesn't have a lot of time on it. So I don't want you to get, well, this is just personal advice in dealing with a lot of these situations. Don't get stuck with board issues and all the rest when you have this time limit coming up, and that's what part of Mr. Singh's going to talk about. The BSA is going to move very shortly, and you need to do everything in your power to get them to either revoke that permit or restrict the permit, because they're already in violation of the existing permit. And that's what support of the community board, having your council person, having all that type of pressure, because that's what city officials and the city agencies, especially now, they're ever more cognizant now of what happened with the cranes and all of the existing violations in the city. You're talking about, it's Queens, by the way, is leading the city in stop work order permits. Queens is up almost double by every other county. The amount of stop work order permits the buildings department has been issuing based on all the current stuff that's going on. So now is the perfect time to follow that climate and say stop. So that's what I'm saying. You got to shorten. On the long term, you can talk about lease, what's happened, but you got to get that engineer going. You got to get him quick. Expand what he or she's going to do, because you're going to need some type of independent study and get them in here, and not just be in the short term. Long term, you have some other issues.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Swaranjit Singh. And I just want to make a very brief and very precise statement here. Whatever Mr. Cooper and Barbara Lenardi have started, it's a great effort. You have started something, and support them, help them. There are so many ways. This is the first thing you have started. And if you support them, what is going to happen is it will bring, you could lose one time, you could go to the second option. You could lose the second option, go to the third time. Because it is your roof, it is your money, it is your income which is going to subsidize your expenses. It is going to bring more money to you. And whatever you have done 20 years ago, time has changed. Technology has changed. And so many things have changed. So what you should do is make the best use of it. And please, let's not try to pull each other down. Let's work together. And I'm a board member, and Mr. Felix Kashmir is there with me. And we are there to support you, as you've seen the kind of support we have given to you, 35-0. Right. And we will be always there for you, and we will always work for you, and this is what we are here for. And let's work together, and let's make it happen. Thank you very much.
Rick Feinhersh. I live in Building 3. I very rarely get up at these meetings. But I have a very simple question. If we're talking about dollars and cents, the lessee wants the lease. Why don't we ask him to pay our engineer to do the report? Absolutely. He wants to know that everything is valid.
It's possible, and I think that's part of your long-term battle. On reviewing the lease and see what the obligations of both parties are. But right now, I think you've got a bigger fight.
But right now, he's trying to get a renewal on the lease, isn't he?
No, not the permit. The permit. There's a city permit.
The permit.
Right, your lease
well,
is up
if
for 9
he wants to renew the permit, let him prove that they're valid. Pay our engineer who's going up to do the radiation.
It's very possible.
Also,
that lease says.
The same engineering firm can do the electrical and everything else, the insulation. It's one engineering firm, they can do everything.
And you should get the fire department up there too.
But your question is basically more of an internal question for the board, and how that's kind of a negotiated thing. And so if you want to get the lessee to cover the costs of the engineer,
Have we tried?
I mean, this is more of a question for Herb, right? Yeah. So Herb is sort of handling this, on behalf of the board, and I, don't want to presume to know all the inside baseball that went into the decision that they ultimately made to spend their own funds to do this. Herb is the best person to speak to that, and I'll let him do exactly that.
We have a meeting of the BSA in approximately 6 weeks. If we were to hire the engineer today, like we're doing, we probably can't even meet that date, but we want to meet the next date. We can start negotiating with the leasee, and my guess is we'll be negotiating with him based on past history for literally months before we say, if we win, he'll say, okay, I'll pay for it. Eventually, when we negotiate the contract, eventually, if we get it, and I want to repeat to you that everything sounds very logical what we're doing, and we should win. This is a real tough battle. There was another major law firm that was hired by North Shore Towers approximately 5 years ago at substantial cost, and they could not win the case. Now we're reopening the issue and see if we can win the case, or see if we can partially win the case. So therefore, the investment that we now have in both an additional law firm, both in an additional engineer, is the bet that we're making that we can beat them.
Mr. Cooper, I've dealt with the BSA for many, many years.
Yes.
If you bring them a very strong argument and a letter from your engineering firm that they're going to be working on it, they might delay the issuing of the permit.
Oh, we have a lawyer that's...
But you have to try it.
Tomorrow there's a board meeting, and what we're hearing today about hiring the engineer, hiring the lawyer, will, I'm positive, be done by tomorrow.
Just based on the time, I know Councilman Gennaro has to get going, so if anyone has any last questions, otherwise I'll let Jim just have one for the councilman.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Cooper, I can stay a little later, but I know Jim has to go.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, could you just talk about the BSA, who makes it up? Are they responsive to public concerns?
Oh,
like
just
community, because I never heard of them
Right.
until a couple of weeks ago.
Generally speaking, all zoning matters, or many zoning matters regarding variances and certain kinds of permits, ultimately go before the Bureau of Standards and Appeals, which I believe is 5 members. 5 members, right? Three. See, I didn't like 2 of them. I got rid of them. Got it down to 3. And so it's a 3-member board. The idea behind the BSA is that some of these technical questions, should be decided, not on the base necessarily of politics, but on substance. And the whole idea is that they're supposed to be objective and fair. Hang on, and not so subject to the vagaries of politics. Now, that being said, people, the local community boards will have a vote on things that ultimately have to go before the BSA, and the BSA can take the advice or the position of the community board, or not. Can take the advice of advocates and lawyers and other people that come before the BSA. But at the end of the day, they are charged with making these decisions and they're appointed by the mayor and the council for fixed terms, and they don't serve at the pleasure of the mayor, so they can be independent, and it was put that way so that they wouldn't be so subject to like the vagaries of politics, and that's how the BSA works.
There's one for the city, there's just 3 for the city, or it goes by county?
There's one BSA for the entire city.
Okay.
And that's how that works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave. Okay. Yes.
If I may, it's not a direct question to you. I just want to introduce myself.
Sure.
Felix Kazmir from Community Board 13. I want to let you know that Mr. Richard Hellenbrett, our chair, expresses his regrets of not being here this evening and asked me to the good graces of Barbara. I spoke with you on the phone that I'm here this evening. I just want to encourage you that what I heard this evening is very vibrant, very powerful. I think we're moving in the right direction. I think we need to follow the advice of Herb Cooper, he who, of course, presented our board recently. I think he's in the right direction. I think, first of all, we can benefit from the information we will receive from the communications engineer.
Yes.
Before we can move into any other direction. I think what we heard is very inspiring, namely this is our place up here. When I say our, of course, I'm a member of this community, a member of the larger community.
Here.
And we as members of the board, we represent the entire area. We comprise of 13 separate communities. Last night, for example, we were in Rosedale addressing certain subterranean issues, etc. So when we are called and we are aware of what's going on, we are here to represent you. Along with Mr. Singh here, we're there, and many other board members. So we want to encourage you in the right direction. We're here to support you and let us know what's going on. Give us
We're here to support
report,
you.
And you're here working with us. We all talk, we all work together. I want to thank you very much.
You bet. You bet. Okay. One more question. I think this gentleman was here.
What does BSA stand for?
Bureau of Standards and Appeals.
Okay.
It's my understanding that the part of the electromagnetic spectrum which these waves operated is probably the microwave part as well as the radio part of the spectrum. And I want people to understand in the community here that at very high powers, which the engineers will be able to determine,
Right.
that the microwaves can be very dangerous to biological entities, basically you and I. These microwaves actually was technology that was developed during World War II and as a predecessor to lasers. They were actually called optical masers. That is what the microwave radiation is. At very high power, Fred Hadley will tell you that if you stand up there on the roof of a very powerful microwave, it'll literally cook you like you're inside a microwave oven. So that's what one of the...
Right, but microwave would be on a different part of the spectrum than would radio frequencies.
This is true, but a lot of television today, a lot of television dishes are microwave dishes. There are dishes up there. There's not only is there radio waves up there, it's my understanding there's also microwaves up there. And depending upon the power, that's what a lot of the issues, which the engineer definitely has to determine. Sure,
which is why I made the case before to ask whether or not there was levels of intensity that were written into the original lease, because how strong the signal is certainly is going to make a big difference on possible effects.
I hear what you're saying. I doubt the lease specified either the number of antennas or actually transmitters, nor the power of those. And that is really the core of what the engineers have to explore.
Sure.
Because the people on the penthouse and the 31st, 32nd, whatever, the higher floors particularly, could be exposed to very dangerous levels that can interact with the body functions.
Which is why, as I said, you've got to have a good lawyer, a good doctor, a good engineer. And I know with Herb Hyde, with Herb's guidance, you're going to get a good engineer, and you certainly need one. But people should also understand that every electrical cord in your house, if you've got a clock radio next to your bed, the wire that plugs in the clock radio, there's an electrical field like around that cord, and so everywhere. But of course, what you'd be getting in terms of level of intensity from the cord from your clock radio is nothing compared to what you would have on the roof. But and that, right now there are, radio waves passing through, each and every one of us. And so, this is just one of those areas where technology and science has kind of gotten ahead of what the possible, physiological consequences of the technology is. Because we know how to make this technology, and sometimes it's not until years later that we find out what the technology is actually doing to us physiologically.
Absolutely agree with you. It stands to reason also that unregulated, these companies are going to be utilizing the most powerful devices they can to get more bang for the buck.
And here's how that stops. That stops ultimately when, like the North Shore Towers of the world and like the St. Mel's parents of the world, start drawing lines and setting limits and, letting the powers that be know in Washington that ultimately controls this thing that they want this industry put on a little bit of a leash. And so this is where it all starts. And so when your representative from Congress is here, when you're, when you're sending, emails to Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton and Gary Ackerman and whomever, it's important to let your federal elected officials know that they are in a position to place reasonable restrictions on this technology, and you wouldn't tell them when they're here that that's what you want. One last question, then I absolutely positively have to go, which is different than absolutely having to go. It's absolutely positively. We've reached that level.
Thank you. I just wanted to tell the audience.
You got to talk right into the mic, like I'm doing.
I wanted to closer. I wanted to thank all of you for coming, and I hope that the audience realizes that the old board and the new board has been working on this problem, and within a very short time, we are going to have a resolution, and a fine resolution, and we're spending all this money. Just think of it. This community is spending all this money, and yet the communities that tried to get rid of the cell phone towers didn't put any money into it. They put a lot of effort. We're doing both. We're putting the money where our mouth is, and we're trying to get this thing settled once and for all. So you can thank your old board and your
That's great.
One more question.
Okay, one more.
Wait a minute.
Absolutely, positively, ultimately, emphatically have to go. Okay.
This question is to the board.
Okay.
The board maybe can answer this. How do you have access to the roof? Can anybody go up there?
The leasee who has the lease to the roof has a lease just like you have an apartment. We cannot go into your apartment. We do have regulations that allow North Shore Towers personnel to go up to the roof and to have access, to make measurements, to see, and that is in the lease. However, we cannot have, and I don't think we would ask, that every person will have the opportunity to go into your apartment nor into that roof.
Well, the reason I'm asking this question is, can you have gypsies up there who are installing things that we don't know about?
That's the reason we're going to take an inventory of what's there.
And also, one thing that hasn't been mentioned tonight, and I'm surprised it hasn't been because of all the years that's been up there, isn't it the case that Santa Claus has difficulty landing the sleigh? I would think that would have been an issue or something, but
Not yet.
I guess
This is a Jewish building.
There you go. That answers the Santa question. There you go.
St. Schmeckelus.
Before you go,
Thank you, Barbara Leonardi. Thank you, Barbara Leonardi.
can I just say one thing about Barbara Leonardi before?
Please.
You beat me to it.
Barbara I met 2 years ago when I was running for state senate. She's proven to be an incredible advocate. When she believes in something, she will fight tooth and nail. She's also come to one of my best friends, and I really think this community is very lucky to have Barbara and Mr. Cooper, who I have the pleasure of meeting tonight.
All right, everyone, I believe you have your coffee and some dessert for you. Thank you, everyone.
Membership, please. The Shareholders Association cannot continue this without your membership. Please see June Cooperstone.
I've got my $25 note.
Okay.